Brought to you by the Harmony Foundation, Colorado's premier treatment facility. We'll tell you more about it in a second. I just came from Broncos, and there are 2 players missing from this week's OTAs. Demaryius Thomas and now Antonio Smith, the new defensive lineman. He is, as we know, under investigation in Texas for, give it to me, for
child abuse.
For child abuse. And
involving possible sexual
yes,
conduct.
a law enforcement person said it was sexual in nature. Don't know what it means. That's all we were told. Anyway, a lot of discussion at Dove Valley over the weekend between John Elway and his staff and Gary Kubiak and Antonio Smith. They met and talked quite a few times over the last couple of days. And the Broncos basically told Antonio Smith, it would be best if, as we talked about yesterday, you take care of your business, let the investigation play out, and then we'll talk about you coming back at the appropriate time. So Antonio Smith is not at OTAs this week.
Yesterday, Mark Kisler was sitting here. He said that's what they should do.
Yes.
He may have had some insight into it. You thought it should just let it. I don't want to interpret that. But what I said was.
I came around to agreeing what Mark said. I came out of the chute thinking, you know what? It's only under investigation. He hasn't been charged with anything. Isn't the guy allowed to work a job until something actually happens? But I came around at the end to what Mark was saying. Yes, he probably should have stepped away for a little bit.
And my position was and remains that if I owned the Denver Broncos, if I were in charge of the Denver Broncos, I would say, go away. We can find other defensive ends. And we talked a week ago with Troy Rink, and I asked him about Kevin Vickerson, for example. There are guys around that are as good as Antonio Smith that would probably go to work for $1.5 million to $2 million, whatever he's going to be making. So that would be my position. It seems like at least they're taking a position rather than just sitting there and not doing anything. I think in the climate of today's NFL that if there's somebody tainted with those brushes, you don't have to deal with them. And I still maintain that. But here is my point that I left yesterday, and I left it out. That investigation's been going on. You're saying he has a right to work. Does he have a right to hide it?
Right?
Does he have a right to not bring it up when you're going into an employer?
That's a good point. Don't know if he brought it up or not.
Well, of course he didn't. They said they didn't know anything about it until the other night. I mean, are you supposed to? This is where I think your position to begin with yesterday doesn't hold water. That if you bring somebody in and you say to them, have you ever used drugs in your life? And they go, no, never have. And you do a drug test and they have used drugs, you go, hey, thank you,
but
next person.
How do you know that was part of the conversation? How do we know that Antonio Smith even knew he was under investigation? How do we know that he and probably his agent knew this? How do we know it even came up in conversation?
Do you think he didn't know anything about this investigation?
I don't know.
There
are a lot of people who get arrested.
Thank you for coming back. Don't go away, Vinny.
There are a lot of people. There are a lot of people who get arrested who don't know they're under investigation. There are people who don't know that. So I don't know if Antonio Smith knew that or not. You could be right. And if that was the case, then the Broncos should hold that against him. He wasn't forthcoming. He wasn't truthful with them. And that tells you something about his character.
Or the Broncos were wrong by not saying to people that they now sign, have you ever been investigated for spousal abuse, child abuse, sexual conduct,
misconduct,
any of those kind of situations?
Yeah, but again, I don't know if that's part of the conversation. I just don't know.
Well, I'm saying to you, are the
Broncos
lying, saying we didn't know anything about this until the other night? Do you think the Broncos are lying about that?
No, I don't.
Their statement was, we learned about it last night.
Okay.
So obviously it hadn't come up in conversation. They hadn't said to him, do you have anything lingering out there that we should know about?
Well, again, I don't know that they asked that, and I don't know that he even knew that he was under investigation. I don't know.
But
maybe I'm being naive. You probably think I am, but I don't know. He might not have known he was under investigation.
So they're just going to suddenly. This has been going on for 7 months
since November.
You don't think?
I don't
I mean,
know.
you're a smart guy. Oh, well, no, you don't think that they interviewed somebody in his realm of
the likelihood
of
is
friendship,
the
and they would say,
likelihood
"God,
is
you're being
He
investigated."
and his agent both knew that he was under investigation.
I rest my case. They didn't bring it up. The Broncos didn't bring it up, we believe. But the Broncos
Yeah.
now have a right to say, it never came up, so we're changing our minds.
And if that's the case, if he did know and his agent knew and they didn't bring it up, then maybe they should let him go.
Okay.
Right?
All right. That was my point that I should have made yesterday, and
Yeah.
I make today, and I will continue to make, is that if the Broncos just found out, it's because he was trying to hide it from them, I believe.
Could be. Harmony Foundation, Colorado's premier treatment program for drug and alcohol addiction. It's located just outside of Estes Park on a private, very nice 45-acre mountain campus. It is insurance friendly, so visit harmonyfoundationinc.com if you'd like to know more.
What are